IDF strikes Hezbollah terrorists moving weapons from facility to truck in South Lebanon. The Israel Air Force struck a weapons storage facility, where IDF soldiers identified Hezbollah terrorists moving weapons into a nearby truck in Bani Hayyan in southern Lebanon on Tuesday, the IDF announced Wednesday morning. The IDF said it is operating in accordance with the ceasefire understandings between Israel and Lebanon, which was enacted in late November. Additionally, it said it will operate against any threat to the State of Israel and its citizens. Destroying a concealed weapons storage facility. IDF Golani soldiers and Erez program troops, under the command of Brigade 769 in the Saluki region of southern Lebanon, located and destroyed a concealed weapons storage facility in southern Lebanon, which contained rocket launchers, missiles, and explosive devices, the IDF announced Tuesday. In another raid on Hezbollah infrastructure on Tuesday, IDF troops discovered missile launchers, explosive material, dozens of AK-47 rifles, grenades, wire-guided missiles, mines, surveillance equipment, incendiary devices, and tactical combat gear. Khamenei hints at desire to overthrow Syria's new government. Iran's supreme leader on Sunday openly opposed Syria's new government, spoke of the need to overthrow it, and announced plans to form a group to combat the Damascus administration. Since Khamenei explicitly said that he was speaking as the leader of the Islamic Republic and not offering an analysis, his words could signal that hostility towards Syria's new government is now official policy for the Islamic Republic. This may serve as a directive for the Quds Force, the IRGC's Foreign Operations Branch. This speech, Khamenei's 1936th during his 35-year tenure, delivered a clear message about the Islamic Republic's position on Syria's new administration. While many regional nations have expressed hope for peace and stability in Syria, Khamenei underscored the need to oppose the new government, essentially advocating for its overthrow. The young Syrian has nothing to lose. His university is unsafe. His school is unsafe. His home is unsafe. His street is unsafe. His life is unsafe. What should he do? He must stand strong and determined against those who designed this insecurity and those who implemented it. And God willing, he will triumph over them, Khamenei said. Khamenei also denied the existence of proxy groups tied to the Islamic Republic, even though such groups are widely recognized globally as Iran's proxies. Organizations like Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Houthis, and al-Shabi have openly acknowledged their dependence on and allegiance to Iran. Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader, who was recently killed in an Israeli strike, repeatedly affirmed that Hezbollah relies entirely on Iran for its financial, military, and logistical support. This dependency is not unique to Hezbollah. Both the Houthis and Hamas have frequently acknowledged receiving financial and military assistance from Iran. Mahmoud al-Zahar, a senior Hamas leader, once disclosed that during a visit to Tehran, Qasem Soleimani personally handed him $22 million in cash, which Hamas representatives transported back to Gaza in suitcases. These statements from the leaders of these groups directly challenge Khamenei's assertions that these forces operate independently and are not proxies of Iran. Khamenei further claimed that the Islamic Republic does not need proxies and is capable of acting directly against the U.S. and Israel if necessary. This assertion contradicts his admission just 10 days earlier in another speech, where he acknowledged that Iran's efforts to support Bashar al-Assad were thwarted by Israeli and U.S. air forces. Not only did Khamenei deny the existence of Iran's proxy forces, but he also refused to acknowledge the evident setbacks faced by Iran and its allied groups in the region. While Israel has destroyed Hamas infrastructure in Gaza, eliminated many of its leaders, including Ismail Haniyeh and Yahya Sinwar, and targeted Hezbollah's command network, Khamenei continues to claim victory. These statements starkly contrast with the on-the-ground realities. Regional and international analysts widely agree that Iran's regional policies have failed. Israel's military strategy has successfully pushed Hezbollah away from the border, limiting its access to Israeli territory. Despite these setbacks, Khamenei persists in his analyses, insisting that Hezbollah has not been defeated. Khamenei's refusal to accept the realities in the region and his continued reliance on flawed analyses stem more from obstinacy than from genuine miscalculation. Rather than acknowledging his mistakes, he attempts to reshape facts to align with his vision. This stubbornness has wasted Iran's financial and human resources, while deepening animosity among regional nations and governments toward Iran. Moreover, Khamenei not only dismisses external realities, but also attempts to silence domestic critics. In his recent speech, he targeted opponents of the Islamic Republic's regional policies, branding them as mercenaries. This follows earlier threats in which he accused dissenting analysts of treason and demanded punitive measures against them. This repressive approach highlights Khamenei's growing concern over the potential domestic fallout from his regional policy failures and their impact on the Islamic Republic's stability. Denying failures and silencing critics will not resolve any issues. Rather, they will exacerbate internal dissatisfaction and further isolate the Islamic Republic both regionally and globally. This persistent denial and obstinacy have already inflicted significant costs on the Iranian people. Khamenei's insistence on opposing Syria's new government and risks not only deepening regional instability, but also fueling anti-Iran sentiment among the Syrian population and neighboring countries. Strange bedfellows, how Islamists and America's left are in cahoots. Protests at American university campuses may have had other goals, but their narrative instead served as clear evidence of how Islamists and Marxists can collaborate against Western values and U.S. interests. The Iranian regime's support of the demonstrations and subsequent invitations by Islamic Republic officials for these students to relocate to Iran were further demonstrations of the deep connections between the Western left and Islamist states and movements. Indeed, Iran under the rule of the mullahs seems to represent the utopian ideal for Western Islamists. For American wokes and leftists, considering a move to Iran might now really be a viable option, although none appear to be willing to relinquish their comfortable lives under capitalism to live in a country whose national currency has lost value 9,000-fold in 45 years. Under the mullah's enlightened rule, men and women in Iran are segregated and separated, making sure everyone can have their respective safe spaces. If you hate America and Israel, congratulations, you're in for a treat. And let's not forget the ubiquitous hijab, praised and flaunted at every turn, making even the most hijab-centric American media ads seem modest by comparison. But the list of Iran as an ideal destination for America's left doesn't stop there. Criticism of Sharia is forbidden, with dissenters labeled as racist and subjected to prosecution. Beef consumption has decreased by approximately 50% in the past year due to poverty, resulting in a reduced carbon footprint. Long lines form for bread, reminiscent of Bernie Sanders' utopia. All media platforms in Iran are actually state-affiliated or state-controlled media. Under the regime, political correctness is at its peak, and people who violate will be prosecuted and imprisoned. Palestinians are praised when they kill Israeli kids and women. The Islamic Republic believes in black reparations in the U.S., and even has a very good relationship with Venezuela and Cuba. The Marxist world of socialist societies and that of Islamists in Iran and the West are mirroring each other these days. An examination of their respective discourses, ideologies, and policies reveals why Western Islamists and America's left are so closely aligned. Shared discourse: Marxists/leftists and Islamists often prioritize their own freedoms over those of others, showing little regard for freedoms such as speech, religion, media, assembly, and association. History has shown that when they gain power, they frequently suppress these freedoms for anyone who opposes their ideology. They often reject tolerance because they view themselves as unequivocally correct on the moral high ground, while others are entirely mistaken. Conspiracy theory serves as the overarching belief that influences every perspective towards their adversaries, with the dominant tendency to assign blame to America first. Both present their ideologies as scientifically grounded and factual, asserting their ideas as the ultimate truth. They portray history as the struggle between classes, whether economic or ideological. For them, the infrastructure of society consists not of civil society, law, ethics, or public opinion, but rather nuclei of power constructed around economics or ideologies, which they perceive as easily manipulable. People are often regarded as tabula rasa, blank slates that those in power can mold according to their desires. Those in positions of authority essentially hold carte blanche, allowing them to play God. Marxists/leftists and Islamists both advocate for the resurgence of strong, centralized states, favoring them over modern states founded upon pluralistic civil society. They reject the notion of international borders and the nation-state model. In their belief system, there is a prominent role of the state in their utopia. Both thought systems have been historically violent and totalitarian. They have been good students of the tactics employed by fascist propaganda machine administrators and agitators. Although Marxists and Islamists have been trying to tear each other apart in the Middle East, they share remarkably similar belief systems. They are historicists, meaning they believe that history, akin to a divine force, is aligned with their cause, leading them to anticipate global conquest. Their vision of an ideal society entails a classless and mass structure governed by a charismatic leader reminiscent of figures like Lenin, Mao, or Khomeini. In this society, people are comrades and subjects, not individuals and citizens with rights. Islamism and Marxism look at human beings as an atom, not an individual, and society as a mass or collective. This atom is stripped of rights and becomes alienated. Governments are viewed as capable of either rescuing individuals or ushering them into a form of utopia. The road to happiness is paved by the government. They both are international.